Hey guys, it's Konrad, Bobilak, CEO of Investors Prime Real Estate and author of Australian Property Finance Made Simple. And I've made this really cool video for you today talking about the question that I get asked very often, especially by young property investors: should we buy our investment property and rent, or should we buy a house, move in, and then leverage against the house and buy investment properties? And that's a very important question to answer. And really, there's two components to this question. Number one, there's an emotional component of ownership, but number two, there's an economic component of purely to do with serviceability and which is the better way to build wealth faster. So today, I'm going to cover this in this very short video and talk about the advantages and disadvantages of ownership versus renting properties, and talk about specific examples of how much does it really cost for you to own a 2-bedroom apartment and a townhouse in Melbourne right now. I'm going to show you a real example with negative gearing on an average income earner. And then I'll let you decide for yourself which way is the best way to go. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Konrad Bobilak. By the way, my background is, and this is the reason why I can talk to you today, I'm a real estate agent, a mortgage broker. I've got a diploma in financial planning. But more importantly, I'm a very successful property investor who has managed to build a large multi-million-dollar property portfolio in Melbourne in the last 20 years. And that really gives me all the qualifications that I need for me to talk to you about this stuff today. By the way, if you want to get a copy of my book, you can jump onto bookonfinance.com.au, Amazon, eBay, or any good bookshop around Australia. Also, what I want to do today is give you a very special bonus. So if you watch this video to the very end, you'll be able to access this free home study on real estate investing with $497. It's 10 hours of video content online with a 265-page manual that teaches you effectively how to build, structure, and automate a large property portfolio from scratch. It's very much content heavy, and it predominantly talks about finance and also how to locate the best properties in Melbourne and look at the fundamentals. So stay tuned to the very end and I'll give you the link you can access that information through. Now, so let's talk about, first of all, the advantages and disadvantages of renting versus home ownership. Also, talk about the cost of owning a typical apartment or townhouse in Melbourne, because Melbourne is becoming very expensive, and also the importance of developing a long-term strategy. Because ultimately, you'll come down to your own personal decision and your own strategy, which way you're going to go. If you look at the advantages and disadvantages of renting, and this is the pros and cons. Pros of renting is you can live in an area that you may not be able to afford to buy into. And there's a lot of people that live in areas like Toorak, Hawthorn, Canterbury, Camberwell, some of the best areas in Melbourne, Brighton, where they could never afford to buy a house for $3 or $4 million, but they can definitely rent an apartment or a townhouse. So it gives you that flexibility of moving into an area that you probably wouldn't be able to afford to move into based purely on your income. It's easier and more cost effective to move between properties. You don't need to sell properties when you move in between rental properties. You just basically give notice to vacate and then you take up another lease. It's very super flexible. Fewer financial commitments, absolutely. You haven't got a mortgage, you've got a lease in place, so you haven't got all the responsibilities that ownership creates. Property maintenance is the responsibility of the property owner. Anything to do with building maintenance, obviously fixtures and fittings are usually not your responsibility unless you damage them. Every major works, structural issues, they're not your issue. They're the issue of the actual owner of the property. In many cases, the weekly, monthly payments are cheaper than owning a home. Look, the rentals at the moment in Melbourne for a detached house in the best suburbs are around 2.75 to 3.25%, where the cost of ownership in the same area is probably around 4%, plus you have another 1.5% in fees and expenses. So the reality is it's virtually half the cost if you look at it objectively to get into a good house. It provides the flexibility in terms of which you choose to live in a particular location. If you are, in school, or if you've got a short-term contract in a particular area, you might want to move in there for 6 months or 12 months or a couple of years, then and leave and go to another area. So the flexibility of moving around different areas is really cool with renting. It gives you a lot of flexibility and lower startup costs. Obviously, you don't need to save a 10% deposit and stamp duty. All you need is a bond, which is basically 1 month worth of rent and the moving costs. So, for an average person, $5 grand, $6 grand will get you there. Where to get into an average property in Melbourne now, with the median price being around $750,000, you probably need about $130,000 to get into an average property. So obviously, it's easier to get into the rental market versus the owner-occupied market. The bad part of it is that your money that you're spending every week isn't going towards your asset. It's actually paying down the asset of your landlord. So you have nothing to show for it. You can be renting for 30 years and effectively have nothing to show for it. Where if you have a house and you have a 30-year mortgage, at the end of that term, your house is paid off and it's yours. And that's important for retirement. It gives you that peace of mind that you can't get evicted from your property. And obviously the property becomes cheaper for you when you have no mortgage, especially at the end of your working career. So housing does have that advantage. You don't have any control over the renewal of your rental agreement. We've seen this in Melbourne, a lot in Sydney, where you're living in a really cool trendy area in a townhouse or an apartment, and a big developer comes along, buys up all the townhouses and apartments, evicts you, and then builds a big tower, and you have no control over that. So you can be displaced as a person in an area just because the landlord decides to sell to someone else. I've had situations where clients were living in townhouses for up to 10 years and the landlord decided to come back to the property, and they evicted the tenant, and then you've literally have 90 days to move out. So it gives you that uncertainty that any time you can be evicted from the property. You're paying off someone else's asset, which is very true. Lack of flexibility to the change to the property to suit your individual needs. If you need to reconfigure the rooms in the property or do an extension, renovation, or improve the backyard or whatever it is, you're very restricted. Even to get air conditioners into some of these properties is a battle. So you don't have the same rights with ownership where you can do whatever you want to the property within reason. Limited by landlord's guidelines, no pets, visitors, smoking, etc., which is very true. A lot of landlords won't allow pets into the property. I'm a dog person, I love dogs, but we have a cat because my wife's a cat person. So we've got pets in our house, but when you're renting, it's very difficult to have that. You've got to have permission to have pets in a lot of properties. A lot of properties are not conducive for pets either. Threat of eviction and lack of ability to renew lease is the major disadvantage. You could be living in an area for 10 years, have your whole network set up, your friends and family, and suddenly the landlord just decides to do something else with the property. And you've got no legal right to do anything about it. And you've got no control over the rent increases. Rent increases can escalate far beyond what's comfortable for you, depending on how cool the area is and how desirable the area is. In some areas in Melbourne, the rents have tripled and quadrupled in the last 10 years, which has priced out a lot of people from an area or a suburb that has transformed, that has traditionally been a conservative area and now potentially could be a really, really desirable area. So you can get actually priced out of the rental market as well. Now, the pros of buying is you're investing in your own asset. You're paying down your own asset. You're in control of the property. If you need to put a nail in the wall, paint a wall, take out a wall, you don't need permission from anyone. You have full flexibility to add your personal touch to the property, renovate, extend, whatever you want to do. Once your mortgage is paid out, your monthly expenses are very low. In fact, it will cost you around 1%, 1.25% for the year to maintain your property, and that includes insurances and upkeeping and maintenance. The equity is being built as an investment which grows in value over time. The easiest way to get into the market is just to build up a little bit of equity in your house, draw against the equity through a line of credit, redraw facility, and buy more properties. So even with areas that are average areas, in Melbourne in the last 5 years, even the worst areas in Melbourne, the worst suburbs have done well and have created equity for people who could normally not even save a deposit. I've seen properties in Melbourne in areas like Sunshine, Glenroy, Dandenong and St Albans go from 300 to 600,000 in the last 5 years. And people have made 300,000 in equity gain where there could be an average income of $60,000. There's no way they could save 300,000. In fact, most of those people won't even save 300,000 over a lifetime. So the ownership advantage is always that you leverage against the asset and you can grow equity in the property, which allows you to buy more property or more wealth. You can borrow against the equity to further invest and convert cash and use it for other purposes. You can also use the equity to buy cars, holidays. I've bought cars, holidays, you name it, I've bought it with equity. You know, and I love equity. You know, it's the best money I've ever made. It's making money while you sleep, effectively. The disadvantages of buying a property is that you have a financial commitment to the bank. You've got pressure on you, and you're susceptible to interest rates as well. You know, interest rates go up, your payments go up. You might have no control over the economy. You might get into a property at a very low interest rate, then suddenly things change and your repayments escalate. Your budget might restrict where you can live, and this is the reality. Most young people now are completely priced out of the premium suburbs in Melbourne or Sydney. They have to either go further out, which they don't want to, 50 k's from the city, or rent indefinitely. You know, they're the only two options. Property maintenance is your responsibility. Saving a big deposit with property values rising, saving a 10% deposit can take years. For most people, that 10% will never happen. Unless they get smart and leverage into an asset and rent and invest, saving 10% is insanely hard, okay? 20 years ago it was possible to do it. Now, I don't believe anyone can save a 10% deposit unless you just live like a complete, prisoner without enjoying life at all for 10 years. I mean, I don't even know how you can save, 150 grand after tax? Jesus, on an average income? Impossible. The purchase process is costly. I mean, stamp duty now is so high. On average, $800,000 house, you need 40 grand in stamp duty. So that's also wasted money. Affordability also has restricted a lot of people from entering the market, and interest rates fluctuating as well, which we talked about. So there's pros and cons on each side. And I want to talk about a little bit more about from a psychological perspective and ownership and strategy perspective as well. Because I want to show you real examples of how much does it really cost to own the property in Melbourne. And I want to show you this example here in St. Kilda. I've used this example before in some of my YouTube videos. This is a 2-bedroom apartment that I've sourced for a client in Martin Street, St. Kilda, which is a really cool suburb. It's got a private courtyard. It's just a normal 2-bedroom apartment, nothing special about it. Fairly standard, except it's got this amazing garden, and it's got an atrium in the middle of the property as well with a glass roof that opens up. So it's got balconies on the inside and the outside of the building. But beyond that, it's just a 2-bedroom, 76 square metre apartment with a 10 square metre balcony. Good size, 2 bathrooms, and a bit of a study look when you come in. But beyond that, very, very standard. Now, the first thing you do is when you buy a property is you want to get a valuation. In this example, we've got Charter Kramer valuing the property at $700,000, which is exactly what it was. Then you also want to get a rental appraisal from a local agent to make sure you know what rent you're going to get for the property, which we have here as well. Moving on, you want to make sure that you know how much you have to pay in owner's corporation fees, which is your basic insurance for the building of your property, and there's a sinking fund that covers the expenses of maintaining your common area of the property. In this example, this property will cost you just under $2,000 per year. Now, if you don't have owner's corporation, it's a bad thing because you've got to pay building insurance anyway. So for $700,000 property, you're going to be spending $1,200, $1,300 anyway every year on building insurance. So don't be scared of owner's corporation, guys, because you have to pay insurance no matter what. You'd be crazy to have a property. Well, you have to have insurance if you've got a mortgage anyway. It's a prerequisite. So it's not like having a car with no insurance. You actually have no option but to have it in place unless you paid cash for it. Council rates for this property are $1,345 per year. And then you've got your depreciation schedule, which is your depreciation on the building and the fixtures and fittings, which is your non-cash deductions. So when you have ownership over a property and you're leasing it out, the ATO says, well, you've got this asset there, you've got this building, and it has wear and tear on the building. So we're going to allow you to depreciate, claim back some of that wear and tear every year. In this example, diminishing value is you get more upfront, is $21,000 for the first year, where prime cost is more evenly spread out over the life of the property. So $21,000 tax deduction. And once again, stamp duty is the killer right now. This property was purchased before the stamp duty changes came into effect in Victoria. So the stamp duty on the property was only $7,091. Now, if you buy a $700,000 apartment in Melbourne, you're paying another $29,979. So you're paying $37,000 in stamp duty, which is crazy money to give away to the State Revenue Office, if you ask me. I'd rather spend that money in Europe on a nice holiday, or other things. So you have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom and a car park and the storage. 76 square metres internal, 10 square metre balcony, so 86 square metres in total, 700,000 off the plan. Stamp duty 7,000, weekly rent 4.25%, 570, and 21,000 in depreciation. Now you can start doing cash flow analysis, basic cash flow analysis on the property. Now I'm going to use an example of my client, Bill and Mary Smith. That's not the real name, by the way. Bill's on 85, Mary's on 50. Good credit file, they've got a house with equity. They're borrowing 100% of the property, which means they've borrowed 95% plus 7% equity from the house. Now you can't get 95 anymore virtually, it's gone, it's 90% now. So whenever you're doing cash analysis, always work out cash analysis on 100% of your expenses plus closing costs. Now this is the magic of property ownership. You have purchase price $700,000, purchase cost $8,291 including legal expenses. Current income Bill has is $85,000, so he's paying $21,097 in tax. The rental per week is $570, which is $29,334 per year. And therefore, the income is now $114,344. So you see the rental income just gets added to his normal income, like it's not just working overtime. There's no difference between rental income and job income. It's all just income, guys. It's all the same. But before he pays tax, he gets to claim deductions, and the deductions in the first 12 months of this property are $61,580. I'm about to show you how those deductions are calculated. Therefore, his new income drops down to $52,762, and the tax he's paying on the new income is $9,542 instead of $21,097. So if you look at that, the new income drops down on paper, not in reality, just on paper, for tax calculation, from $85,000 down to $52,764. The new tax that he's paying is only $9,542, so he's saving $11,550 in tax, which is now going away from the ATO into his back pocket, which is the beautiful thing about property investing. That's $216.85 a week. Now, as an owner, this is a really good argument why you should own your own property. If anything, okay, you're making another $216 a week away from the ATO into your own pocket. So you're making another $11,555 per year as a wage increase that's going towards your property, not the ATO. See, the reality is most people work for the tax department Monday and Tuesday of every week, sometimes even half of through Wednesday, and they keep what they earn after Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Isn't that sad and depressing? That's why everyone's on Facebook for the first 2 days of Monday and Tuesday at work. They hardly ever work on Monday and Tuesday. It's not true, by the way. I'm making that stuff up completely. Deductions, how did I get that $61,000? You got interest on the property, $32,219, depreciation on the building, depreciation on the fixtures and fittings, and then you have your expenses, so your property management expenses, landlord's insurance, council rates, land tax, you name it, green bins, everything. Total $61,580. These are real numbers from the accountant, by the way. I'm not making this stuff up. Okay. Weekly cost of finance, $619.59, and rates and maintenance, $166.82. And the total, therefore, is $786.41. And here's the magic of property. That's your expenses minus your rental and your tax. You're out of pocket 44 cents a week. It actually costs Bill 44 cents a week to own this 2-bedroom apartment after tax, after rent contribution. That's how much, less than $1. So if you're earning 85 grand a year and you can afford $1 a week, you'd be crazy not to buy a 2-bedroom apartment. Far beyond, whether you're renting or not renting, it's irrelevant. If you can buy it, just buy it, or a townhouse. Because otherwise you're just paying tax. The dumbest thing to do, guys, is just not to do anything and just pay tax. Because you're too busy with life, Because you're never getting that money back. Now, yes, that money goes to roads and schools and everything else, but there's a lot of stupid things the government spend money on as well, okay? And it's definitely, once it's gone, it's not your money. And this is the reason why I invest in property in the first place. It's not so much the rental. The rental is not going to make you money, okay? The rental is irrelevant. That's your rental there. In year 10, you're making $6 grand a year. What's going to make you money is the equity, the appreciation on the property. Now, St.Kilda is growing at around 10% per year, but I've done these calculations at 8% per year. So in year 3, you've got 165,000 in equity. 165 in equity in 3 years. Now you tell me, how many years would it take you to save $165,000? And could you choose to sell that property and then just have a deposit for a house and like sell your investment property and move into your own property? Or wait a little bit longer, wait for 5 years and have 300 grand. Wouldn't you just buy a Ferrari or something? Do anything with it, give it to charity, give it to your church. The dumbest thing, guys, is just to work and pay tax. That's just the lowest use of your time. And this is what majority of people are doing. It's too hard basket. I'll worry about it when I'm older. I'll just, I'm on my 80 grand a year. I'm comfortable. I'm having my, smashed avocados for breakfast. I'm kidding. And I'll just carry on with life and pay tax. That's just dumb, in my opinion. That's just stupid. There's no other way of categorizing that behavior. I mean, once you know this stuff, why wouldn't you buy a property and invest? Even if you're not greedy for money, give the money to charity. Take a year off, go to some third world country and donate $200,000 and use 100 grand to live there for a year. I mean, that's a better use of your time than just working and paying tax to the ATO. That's just stupid, And I make no apologies for that. I really believe that. And this is the reality of the first year. Your tenant and your taxman pay majority of your costs. You're not even in the equation. So why wouldn't you buy property? I mean, I don't understand it, You're out of the equation completely. You are zero in this equation. You're not contributing anything. Your tax, now, on an average income of 85 grand, 2 properties and you have no more tax benefits, or 3, depending on how much you spend. So yeah, eventually you get to a stage where you have no more tax benefits. But worry about that stage when you get there, guys. Don't worry about it before, It's funny, it's always people that talk about tax have no money. Konrad, but I want to put, what about the tax when I sell the property? Okay, if you make 300 grand, you give away 150, you still get to keep 150 grand. That's a really good holiday in Vegas, okay? Or a really cool car, okay? You're going to be really happy with 150 grand. Property example number 2, I'm going to skip this one. This is I'm going to go through this quickly. It's just a 3-bedroom townhouse in Aspendale, another real example. And it's a really good configuration. 3 bedrooms, master bedroom with an ensuite and a walk-through robe. Double car garage, a little courtyard, really nice townhouse, one of only 4 in a really cool suburb called Aspendale on the beach in Melbourne. Okay, this property was sold off the plan, $740,000, and this was actually sourced it wasn't the same client, it was another client, okay? Valuation for rental, let me step back a little bit. So you have an independent valuation, $740,000, a rental appraisal, $600 a week, it's probably about $650 now. You've got your owner's corporation, which is your building insurance effectively, and insurance to cover the common driveway, which is $1,100 per year. You got your council rates estimated at about $1,100 a year. You got your depreciation on the property from BMT, which is $13,301 for the first 12 months. So lower than the apartment, because with a townhouse, you don't have any underground parking or any kind of commercial construction. So with townhouses, you pretty much just depreciate your own townhouse. With an apartment, you get to depreciate a portion of all the common areas. That's why apartments give you the largest tax deductions out of any property. I'm not saying they're the best investment vehicle. I'm just saying for tax reasons, they give you the highest depreciation on building, because not only do you depreciate the apartment, you depreciate all the common areas as well, and you get to have a percentage of that towards your depreciation. Because someone has to own those common areas, and it's you. Stamp duty was 10 grand, 430, saving 28,000 under the old rule. The new stamp duty on that property would be nearly $40,000. And if you've got an issue with stamp duty, just thank the Labor government for that. They're the ones responsible for it. So send Bill Shorten a nice email. Thanks, Bill. 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, double lock-up garage and storage, 183 square metres, nice size property, not too big, not too small. You don't want to go too big with townhouses, you won't get the rental back in a lot of these suburbs. It was actually purchased at $725 off the plan. When the valuation was done, it was $740, so it went up slightly. Stamp duty was $10,430, weekly rent 4.17%, which is $600 per week, and depreciation. Now we can crunch some numbers. Bill and Mary Smith again, Bill is on 85, Mary's on 50. And once again, as we skip through this example, I'm not going to go through it in detail. This property after tax Cost built, $52 per week. So if you on 85 grand to buy a townhouse for 740,000 or 725, you need $50 a week. Is that affordable for you? 2.5 grand a year? Maybe, maybe not. If it's not affordable, buy an apartment. It's $1 a week. If you can save 2.5 grand a year, buy a townhouse. You're going to make more money out of townhouses than apartments, you know. Now, the thing about this is, if you can afford to get into one of these, and if you can afford to save a deposit, or even do a vendor finance or do a gifted deposit, there's a video that I've actually done on YouTube, which is 5 ways to buy property with no money down. I would recommend you do it right now in this market, because what's happening in Melbourne and Sydney is there is a massive difference now between classes, and the determining factor between the classes, the have and the have-nots, is property. You know, especially in the last 10 years. I'm seeing people that are completely priced out of the market. I'm seeing people that have bought 3 properties without any creativity or any research, and they've made $1 million or $2 million in equity, and they've really set themselves up for life. Not only that, they've set the future generations for life. I mean, this is the thing. Your kids, if you don't have property, your kids will be renting forever, like in Europe. 95% of people in Germany rent. My kids end up with all my properties. I mean, they won't even know what to do with themselves. That's probably, and that's a problem as well in itself, because, you know, I don't want to stuff them up either with too much money, but at least they'll have a house paid off completely to live in without any problems, just focus on their life. So the thing about it, guys, is I encourage you guys to embrace home ownership. Yes, you might not be able to buy into the top suburb initially, but I would encourage you to buy anything, anywhere, and rent. Okay, because from a lending perspective, you can build wealth faster without home ownership, simply by renting where you choose to rent and live, and buy an investment property. The worst thing you can do is just rent and not buy anything, because then if you don't have anything behind you, if you get evicted, you can't buy anything. At least with an apartment or a townhouse or a house, you can sell it eventually and use that money as a deposit to get into your own property. There's nothing more satisfying, in my opinion, than having the knowledge that you own a piece of land and a house and no one can move you out of it. No one can ring you up and say, hey, we're moving back into the property, or hey, we sold to a developer and we're going to put some apartments there, so thank you very much for paying rent for the last 6 years. You got 90 days to move out. There's nothing more satisfying having that peace of mind that people cannot relocate you, that this is your little bit of dirt and that's it, and that's your world. Do you know what I mean? And yes, is it hard to get into Melbourne? Absolutely it's hard. Is it hard to get into Sydney? Yeah. I mean, go regional, you know, go to Hobart, go to Tassie, go to Adelaide. I'm kidding, do not go to Adelaide, okay? Nothing happens in Adelaide, okay? So I would go anywhere else but Adelaide. Sorry, Adelaide people, city of churches. Actually, Adelaide's a very pretty city. North Adelaide's really cool, Glenelg's really cool. But I still wouldn't move there. But yeah, I would go Bendigo, Ballarat, regional areas. You know, there's so many coastal towns that are really cool around Australia that you can move into for a fraction of Melbourne and Sydney. So that's something you could consider, or live in the city, in an apartment, and definitely invest. And this is the reason why you invest, guys. It's equity. Equity, equity, equity. You know, year 3, you've got 170,000, year 5, you've got 300 grand. Even if you don't like this townhouse and you're renting an apartment and you own this property, sell the house in 5 years and it's a deposit for your own property. You know, it's a way to get into the market. So in this example, I just wanted to show you, you know, things to think about: ownership versus renting, buying versus renting. Here's the thing: ownership is an emotional thing. If you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life because you don't own your own house, buy your house. Go into wherever you can, buy the big house, and then invest. If you don't have that obsession with ownership and you're happy to live in the nice area that you choose to live in, but you can't afford to buy into, rent in the area, but then invest elsewhere. I would say in both instances, the key is you have to invest. You have to have money working for you while you sleep. Okay? You cannot rely on your income from your job to make you wealthy. You can't save yourself to wealth, number one. You'll never be able to save enough money after tax to become wealthy. And you'll never be able to save enough money to save up for a deposit in today's market in Melbourne and Sydney on average income. It's virtually impossible. 10 years ago it was possible. Today, with the living costs where they are, with petrol where it is and everything else, I mean, it's just virtually impossible, you know, to do it. I've got a friend of mine who's actually working in the city. He works in banking and finance. He's on about $80,000 a year, and he was struggling to save a deposit for a property. I gave him some tips, and what he decided to do is move into Lorimer Street, Docklands, and to a 2-bedroom apartment. He sold his car. He actually has subleased his car park to subsidise his rent, and he rides his bike to work. And he's got super fit, by the way. He's lost like 10 kilos in the last 2 years. Well, literally doing nothing new. And because of the proximity to the city of Lorimer Street, he doesn't drive anywhere. The amount of money that he saved through his car, he estimates that with car repayments, petrol, insurance, he was spending around $18,000 to $21,000 per year on his vehicle. And now he's channeled that money into a savings account, and now he's halfway through saving a deposit for his first property. And it really hasn't impacted his life. You know, he's got amazing facilities in the building he lives in. He's got a gymnasium, a swimming pool. It's all free, and the rent is very reasonable, and he's right in the centre of the city, so he's got access to all the nightlife restaurants the city has to offer. I mean, that could be an option. And the guy grew up in the burbs, by the way. He's never been a city dweller. So it's a new change for him, but it's something that he had to do because the way he was going, he was never going to get into the property market. So, you know, I just want to share these ideas with you and these concepts so you can start thinking about yourself if you fall into that category of someone that's really struggling to get into the market. And I don't want you to give up on the hopes of getting into the market. I want you to start focusing and asking questions of how can you get into the market. And if it's not the Melbourne market, go regional first. Get into properties for 200 grand in regional areas like Bendigo, Ballarat, for example, Shepparton. They're still growing at 7-8%, and then leverage yourself into Melbourne and then build up your wealth over time. You'll be amazed. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you're interested in learning more and learning really the methodology behind how to build, structure a large property portfolio, I want to encourage you to attend and spend 2 days with me and some other people at my real estate investing fast track weekend, which I run from time to time in Melbourne. We run about 10 of these per year, about once every 4 to 6 weeks, right here in our St.Kilda office. These are the speakers that we have lined up. So obviously we spend a lot of time on real estate and finance. And it's an amazing 2 days. There's nothing you can buy at the event, by the way. It's just pure education and contents. Right here in our head office in Alma Road, St Kilda. So all you got to do is, if you're interested in attending and finding out more about the event, scroll down below. Tickets are complimentary. You can upgrade to VIP if you want to, but you can come for free, no strings attached. It's a lot of information. Day one is purely a classroom environment, contents on finance and the property market. Day two, we take you out of the classroom environment, we throw you onto a bus, and we drive around Melbourne and show you the best areas to invest in and the areas to avoid as well. And areas that have already had their run as well at this property cycle that are at the peak. Also, if you're interested in learning more about finance and how to build and structure your property portfolio and how to do a mortgage reduction program, buy my book by going to amazon.com.au or bookonfinance.com.au or any good bookshop around Australia. They've all got my book. It's nearly on the verge of becoming a bestseller selling book at the moment, so it's really cool. So thank you for those guys who bought my book, and thank you for all the positive feedback that I've had as well. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to give you a free gift, no strings attached. It's a 10-hour home study online with $497, and literally it's free. I know it sounds too good to be true. I've had emails saying, what's the catch? There is no catch. Just register and start watching. It's super simple to use. Once you register, you've got the video, you've got the manual, you open up the manual and you just listen to myself and other speakers for 10 hours and learn a lot of cool stuff about real estate investing. It's absolutely free, it's instant access, and literally this is the website you go to, or you scroll down below, click the link, register. You can be watching this information in seconds from now. It's my gift to you guys, absolutely free. I hope you use the information and I hope you get into the property market and make those wise decisions, and more importantly, make no mistakes, because mistakes in real estate can be very costly. That's it from me, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for listening to all the way to the end. This is Konrad Bobilak, and I'll see you on the inside.